Welcome back, everybody. For today's deep dive, one of you sent in Atomic
Oh,
Habits.
a great one by James Clear.
Yeah, really excited to dig into this. Um,
It's a really fascinating look at self-improvement.
yeah, I've heard about this book for a while now, and I've been
Yeah.
meaning to get to it. I've heard a lot of great things, so
Yeah.
oh,
He's got
yeah,
kind of a compelling story too, doesn't he?
yeah,
With the whole like,
accident and everything.
yeah, exactly. Like you're
Wow.
using that
It's like
experience.
a near fatal accident, right? And
Yeah.
then turning that into like
Yeah.
a whole,
Gosh.
a system for self-improvement and
Yeah.
positive habits and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, really is.
Um, so like one of the things that stuck out to me was this idea of tiny gains.
Yeah.
Like how these small changes, they can actually lead to like big results over time.
The whole kind of premise of the book, right, is that like these small incremental changes
Yeah.
can compound and lead to these like massive.
Transformations.
Yeah.
And he's got that statistic about 1% improvement a day,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
leading to almost 38 times improvement over a year.
Oh, I love that. It's so simple.
Right.
It's like why haven't I thought about that? Like
Yeah.
it's not about making like these huge drastic changes.
Right.
It's about those little things that you do consistently.
And I think that's a big part of why this book resonated with so many people.
Yeah.
It's just more manageable, right? Than thinking I've got to, overhaul my entire life.
Right.
It's like, okay, what's one small thing I can improve today?
Right, right. Okay, so Clear also talks about like focusing on systems
Yeah.
rather than goals, and that really resonated with me.
Me too.
Like I'm so guilty of getting caught up in setting these grand goals.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then, life gets in the way and
Yeah.
the daily grind and
It's hard to stay on track.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What about you? How have you seen goals and systems working like
Well, I think goals are important, right?
Yeah.
They give us a sense of direction,
yeah.
a North Star to aim for.
I like that. A North Star.
But the systems are how we actually get there.
Right. Okay.
It's like, the roadmaps,
Yes.
the step-by-step guide to actually achieving those goals.
Love that. Okay, so like how do we actually build those systems?
Well, Clear gives us a framework, right?
Okay.
With his 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
And the first one is all about awareness.
Okay.
It's make it obvious.
Okay. Make it obvious.
Yeah, you can't change what you don't acknowledge, right?
Right.
It's kind of like, taking inventory of our existing habits.
So like how do we actually do that? Like what's the first step?
Well, one technique is this idea of a habits scorecard,
Ooh, a scorecard.
where
Yeah.
you list out your daily actions and kind of track what you're actually doing.
And I mean, I bet you find some surprises in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you think you're spending your time one way, but then you actually see it written out.
It's amazing what you realize you're doing.
Yeah.
So once you've got that awareness,
Yeah.
the next step is to get specific
Okay.
with something called implementation intentions.
Implementation intention.
It sounds fancy,
Yeah.
but it's basically just planning your habit.
Okay. Planning your habit.
So instead of saying, I'm going to drink more water, which is very vague,
Yeah.
you say, I will keep a full water bottle on my desk and refill it every time I go to the kitchen.
So you're like tying it to a specific cue.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Then making it much more concrete and actionable.
All right. What else?
And then there's habit stacking.
Ooh, habit stacking. Tell me more about that.
This one's brilliant. It's basically leveraging your existing habits.
Okay.
So instead of trying to create a whole new routine,
Yeah, because that's hard.
you attach the new habit to something you're already doing consistently.
Yep.
So like if you always make a cup of coffee in the morning,
Yeah.
you could stack a 5-minute meditation onto that.
So the coffee becomes like the cue for the meditation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about using your existing habits as a springboard for new ones.
Yeah, I love that. Like I try to meditate and it's like I just can never find the time for it. But if I tie it to something I already do,
Right.
yeah.
It becomes much easier.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
And this idea of making it obvious also applies to our environment, right?
Yeah.
Both physically and digitally.
That's a good point.
So, like, what are some things you've done in your physical space to support good habits?
Well, one thing I've been doing is leaving a book on my bedside table instead of my phone.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. It just helps me like wind down at night,
Absolutely. It's about making the cue for the good habit
Yeah.
more obvious and the cue for the bad habit
Yeah.
less obvious.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about making it obvious. What's the next law?
Okay, so next up, we've got make it attractive.
Oh, make it attractive.
So
Okay.
this is where we kind of tap into the neurochemistry of our brains
Okay.
a little bit.
I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
Okay, so think of dopamine
Yeah.
as your brain's like reward chemical.
Yeah, the feel-good stuff.
Yeah, it makes you feel good when you do things you enjoy.
Uh-huh.
So one way to make a habit more attractive is through temptation bundling,
Temptation bundling.
where you pair something you want to do
Okay.
with something you need to do.
Okay, give me an example.
So let's say you want to watch your favorite show,
Yeah.
but you also need to work out.
Yeah.
You only allow yourself to watch that show
Okay.
while you're on the treadmill.
Ah, okay.
I'll admit I've been known to do that one myself.
I mean, if it works, right.
It's a clever way to kind of trick your brain
Yeah.
into enjoying the habit.
Right.
And then Clear also talks about the role of environment.
Okay.
And he uses this fascinating example of the Polgar sisters.
Oh, yeah, the chess prodigies.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it about their story that relates to this?
Well, their parents basically crafted an environment that revolved around chess.
Right.
Right. They had chess books everywhere.
Yeah.
They played chess with them constantly.
It makes you wonder, like, what kind of environment are we creating for ourselves?
Yeah, what are we surrounding ourselves with?
Yeah.
And what habits are we, making more attractive or less attractive
Right.
based on our environment?
Yeah, that's a good point. So our environment has a huge impact on our habits. What else is there?
So another point he makes, which kind of builds on this, is about the influence of people around us.
Okay.
We tend to mirror the habits of our closest circles.
So, like, if you're trying to build a new habit, surround yourself with people who already do it.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Find that tribe, so to speak, that supports your growth.
I like that.
And he even suggests, maybe find a culture where you already have something in common
Okay.
with the group. Right. So it makes the habit change a little less daunting.
Yeah, like joining a running club if you want to be a runner.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're surrounded by people who understand what you're going through.
And they can encourage you and support you and all that.
Yeah, and hold you accountable too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about the influence of our environment, the people around us. Anything else?
Well, he also talks about this idea of reframing our habits
Okay.
by, basically making good habits more attractive and bad habits less so.
Okay, so how do we rewire our brains?
It's like a mental trick,
Yeah.
right? Like to
Yeah.
enjoy the things that are good for you
Yeah.
and to kind of avoid the things that aren't.
Okay.
And one technique he suggests is switching from I have to
Okay.
I get to.
Okay.
So instead of, I have to go to the gym.
Yeah.
It's I get to move my body and feel energized.
Oh, okay. It's like a mindset shift.
Yeah, exactly.
You're focusing on the positive aspect of it?
Yeah, instead of the negative.
Okay, I like that.
And it's a subtle change.
Yeah.
But it can make a big difference in how you feel about the habit.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So what's the third law then?
All right, so the third law is make it easy.
Okay, make it easy.
And this one really speaks to our human nature.
Okay.
We're kind of wired for ease and convenience, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest.
The law of least effort often wins out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So this is where we acknowledge that.
Okay.
And we design our environment
Okay.
to make good habits easy and bad habits harder.
So it's about removing those barriers.
Exactly. He uses this great analogy of a garden hose with a kink in it.
Okay.
You can try to force water through that kink,
Yeah.
but it's going to take a lot of effort.
Right.
But if you remove the kink,
Yeah.
the water flows effortlessly.
So we need to find those kinks in our lives and just remove them.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. What are some examples of that?
Well, he talks about this IT developer who had this whole system for resetting each room after using it.
Oh, interesting.
Like putting the remote back on the TV stand,
Yeah.
tidying up the pillows.
Well, he's setting himself up for success.
Exactly.
Not for clutter.
Right.
I like that. Okay.
And to make starting new habits even easier, there's this idea of the 2-minute rule.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that.
Have you?
Yeah.
So it's basically the idea that you break down your habits into tiny little pieces.
Right.
So instead of aiming to, read for an hour,
Yeah.
you commit to just 2 minutes of reading.
Right.
And the idea is once you've started,
Yeah.
it's much easier to keep going.
Oh, that's so true. It's like you trick your brain into getting started.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that 2 minutes can become a gateway to the larger habit.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So make it easy, break it down.
Yeah, make it small.
Make it small. Yeah. What about automation?
Oh, automation is
Oh,
huge.
yeah.
It can really free up our mental energy and willpower,
Okay.
like setting up automatic savings plans,
Okay, yeah.
you know, bill pay,
Yeah.
unsubscribing from all those tempting email lists.
Yeah.
Those one-time actions can save you a lot of willpower in the long run.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, technology can really help us with this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's so many apps and tools out there now that make it easier to
Track our habits,
yeah,
automate certain tasks.
yeah. So it's about using technology to our advantage.
Right, not letting it control us.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So we've got the first three laws. What's the final one?
All right, so the fourth law is make it satisfying.
Okay. Make it satisfying.
And this one gets to the heart of how our brains are wired.
Okay.
We're wired for instant gratification, right?
Yeah,
We want to feel good now, not later.
that's so true.
And this is often where we trip up with good habits.
Right, because they tend to have those delayed rewards.
Yeah.
You work out today, you don't see the results for weeks.
Exactly. But bad habits,
Yeah.
they give us that immediate gratification.
Right. Like that tasty, unhealthy snack.
Yeah, that sugar rush.
Totally. So how do we bridge this gap?
Well, Clear shares this fascinating example from a hand-washing study in Pakistan,
Okay.
where they found that using a premium soap that lathered well and smelled good
Okay.
actually increased hand-washing rates.
Because it made the act of hand washing more enjoyable.
Exactly. And it's those little sensory details
Yeah.
that can make a difference.
Yeah, it's like think about toothpaste, right? It's not just about cleaning your teeth.
It's that minty freshness
Yeah, exactly.
that makes you want to brush.
Yeah. Okay, so we need to find ways to add those little rewards to our good habits.
Yeah. He also talks about the power of a habit tracker.
Oh, I love habit trackers.
Yeah.
There's something so satisfying about seeing those days you stuck to it.
It's like a visual representation of your progress.
Yeah. It keeps you motivated,
It really does.
Yeah,
And it taps into that sense of accomplishment.
totally. But I imagine it's easy to get carried away with tracking, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's why it's important to focus on the habits that truly matter,
Right.
not trying to track every single thing you do.
Right. The ones that are aligned with your values and your goals.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense. So make it satisfying, track your progress. Anything else?
Well, he also suggests this interesting inversion of the fourth law, making bad habits unsatisfying.
Okay.
He shares a pretty extreme example from a nuclear strategist
Okay.
who proposed implanting nuclear launch codes in a volunteer.
Oh, wow.
Right. The idea was that if the president had to kill someone
Yeah.
to launch those nukes,
Yeah.
it would make the act far less appealing.
Okay, that's definitely a very intense
A
example.
bit extreme.
Yeah.
But it highlights the power of consequences.
Right. If a mistake is painful, you're less likely to repeat it.
Exactly.
What about a more practical example?
Well, he talks about the idea of a habit contract,
Oh, okay.
where you write out your commitment to a habit,
Yeah.
the consequences if you fail,
Oh, okay.
and you get someone to sign off on it.
Okay. So it's like an accountability partner.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a way to create that external motivation when your internal willpower might be wavering.
Right. It's almost like social contracts, right?
Oh, yeah, like seatbelt laws.
Yeah.
We agree to buckle up, and
Yeah.
if we don't, there are consequences.
Yeah.
So it's a way to use that kind of external pressure to shape our behavior.
Right. Okay. And we can apply that same concept to our personal habits.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered these 4 laws.
Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Those are the 4 laws.
Okay, that's a great framework, but where do we go from here? How do we actually make these habits stick in the long run?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where we'll get into some of the deeper aspects of habit formation.
Okay, I'm ready.
So Clear talks about the importance of talent,
Okay.
finding those habits that align with our natural abilities.
Oh, I like that.
And he uses the example of Michael Phelps.
The Olympic swimmer.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus Hitchemel Garouge.
Who's that?
He was an Olympic runner.
Oh, okay.
World record holder, actually, in the 1,500 meters in the mile.
Wow.
And the point is, they both achieved incredible success,
Yeah.
but in totally different sports.
Right, so it's like finding what you're naturally good at.
Exactly. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And when our habits align with those strengths,
Yeah.
progress becomes much easier.
Okay, so it's about identifying those strengths
Yeah,
and then tailoring our habits to them.
right. Okay. And I guess even when we find those ideal habits,
Yeah.
it could be tough to stay motivated over the long term.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How do we avoid getting bored or complacent? That's a great question, and one we'll definitely be diving into next time.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll explore how to make those habits stick for the long haul.
I'm looking forward to that. Thanks for joining us for part 1 of this deep dive into atomic habits.
You bet. So, picking up where we left off, we were talking about like how to make these habits stick long term.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things Clear talks about is this idea of habit shaping,
Okay.
which is a really practical approach, I think, to building those long-lasting changes.
Habit shaping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like instead of trying to make this huge leap all at once,
Right.
you break down the desired habit
Yeah.
into these smaller, more manageable phases.
Okay.
It's like you're building a staircase one step at a time.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
So instead of aiming to write a whole book,
Yeah.
you might start by just committing to writing for 15 minutes each day.
Yeah, yeah.
You're gradually increasing the complexity and the duration
Right.
rather than overwhelming yourself from the start.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I think, one of the reasons I've struggled with building new habits in the past is that I try to do too much too soon.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like we try to go from 0 to 60
Yeah.
and then we burn out.
Totally. Yeah. And then we give up.
Yeah.
So habit shaping is more about like setting yourself up for success.
Exactly.
Starting small,
Yeah.
building that momentum.
Yeah. And, we talked about this a bit in the last part, but Clear also goes into this whole psychology of why we tend to give up on our habits.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest culprits is this mismatch
Okay.
between immediate and delayed rewards.
Right. Our brains just want that instant gratification.
Yes. Our brains are wired
Yeah.
for that immediate pleasure.
So we reach for a cookie instead of the apple
Exactly.
because the cookie's going to give you that sugar rush right away.
So the dopamine hit.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and it's tough to resist those instant rewards even when we know they're not good for us in the long run.
It's that battle between our present self and our future self.
Totally.
And Clear uses this really fascinating analogy.
Okay.
To illustrate this point, he compares us to animals roaming the African plains.
Okay, what do animals on the savannah have to do with our habit struggles?
Well, for those animals, most of their decisions have an immediate impact.
Okay.
Right. They need to find food.
Yeah.
They need to avoid predators. They need to find shelter.
Yeah.
They live in what Clear calls an immediate return environment.
Immediate return.
Whereas we humans, we live in what he calls a delayed return environment.
Okay, so we're saving for retirement. We're investing in our education.
We're working towards goals that might take years or even decades to achieve.
And our brains haven't quite caught up.
No, we're still wired
Yeah.
for that instant gratification.
Even though so many of the things we want require delayed gratification,
Right.
It's like a fundamental mismatch.
It is.
Okay, so how do we bridge this gap then? How do we make those long-term rewards more appealing?
Well, one strategy Clear suggests is to add a little bit of immediate pleasure
Okay.
to good habits
Okay.
and a little bit of immediate pain
Okay.
to bad habits.
Interesting. So it's like rewarding myself with a relaxing bath after a tough workout.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or maybe having to donate to a cause you don't support every time you miss a workout.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Right. It's about creating this system
Yeah.
of immediate consequences.
That reinforce the behavior you want.
Right.
Okay, it's like giving our present selves a little nudge.
Yeah, a little nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So, and I think this also plays out in how we procrastinate, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like we put off tasks that have those delayed rewards.
Yeah, like that report that's due next month or that doctor's appointment we keep putting off.
Exactly, because the rewards for those actions feel so distant and intangible.
Right.
We prioritize the things that make us feel good in the moment.
Yes. Scrolling through social media, binge watching our favorite shows.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that.
All right, it's that instant gratification cycle.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so beyond the instant gratification trap, Clear also talks about the role of emotions
Okay.
in shaping our habits.
Right, because we often think of habits as being purely logical.
Right, like a simple if-then equation.
Yeah, but there's this huge emotional component, too.
Absolutely.
Our feelings and emotions play a big role in our actions.
They drive our cravings.
Yeah.
They influence our choices.
It's not just about knowing what we should do. It's about feeling motivated to actually do it.
And Clear highlights some research
Okay.
on people with damage to the emotional centers of their brains.
Okay.
And these people often struggle to make decisions,
Really?
even if they can logically understand the
Wow.
reasons for taking action.
So it's like our emotions are essential for decision-making,
They are.
even when it comes to our habits.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, that's fascinating. So how do we leverage this understanding then?
Well, one technique Clear suggests is reframing our thinking
Okay.
about those challenging habits. Okay.
So instead of saying, I have to do something,
Right.
try saying, I get to do it.
So instead of, ugh, I have to go to the gym,
Yeah,
it's, I get to move my body and improve my health.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift in language,
Yeah.
but it can
Yeah.
completely change your emotional state.
Right. You're reframing it as an opportunity
Yeah,
rather than a chore.
right.
I like that.
So you're shifting your focus
Yeah.
to the positive aspect of the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
What other emotion-based strategies does he suggest?
Yeah.
Well, another powerful technique is to create a motivation ritual.
A motivation ritual.
Yeah.
Okay, what's that?
This is where you pair a habit you want to build
Okay.
with something you already enjoy.
Okay.
So, for example, if you love listening to podcasts,
Uh-huh.
you could make it a rule to only listen to your favorite shows while you're walking.
Oh, I actually do that.
Do you?
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're basically conditioning your brain
Yeah.
to associate the habit,
Yeah.
in this case, walking,
Yeah.
with something pleasurable,
Right.
listening to podcasts.
Yeah. And then eventually your brain starts to crave that habit
Exactly.
instead of resisting it.
Right, you're training your brain
Yeah.
to want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's a good one.
And this ties into another concept
Okay.
that Clear explores, which is the idea of flow state.
Ah, flow state. Yeah. Yes, I've heard of this.
It's that feeling of being completely absorbed in an activity
Yeah.
where time seems to disappear.
Yeah, like when I'm writing and I get so lost in the words that I completely lose track of time.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Researchers have found that we're most likely to experience flow
Okay.
when we're working on tasks that are just slightly beyond our current abilities.
So it's about finding that sweet spot
Yeah.
where the challenge is engaging.
Engaging, but not overwhelming.
Right, right.
It can't be too easy because then you get bored,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But it can't be too hard because then you get frustrated.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
And when we're in a flow state, we tend to be more motivated, more productive, more satisfied with the experience.
It's like hitting that perfect stride.
Exactly.
So how do we find that flow state more consistently?
Well, Clear believes it's about constantly challenging ourselves.
Okay.
Seeking out those opportunities
Yeah.
to push our limits just a little bit.
So it's not about staying in our comfort zone.
No, it's about embracing that edge of discomfort
Okay.
where growth happens.
And this ties back into habit shaping, right?
Absolutely.
Like gradually increasing the challenge.
As we build competence,
Okay.
it's a dynamic process
Right.
of pushing ourselves just enough
Yeah.
to stay engaged, but not so much that we become overwhelmed.
Okay. Makes sense.
Now, Clear also makes this really important distinction
Okay.
between motion and action.
Motion and action. Okay. What's the difference?
Well, it's easy to get caught up in the planning and preparation stages
Right. Yeah.
without actually taking concrete steps.
Oh, the action.
The action.
Okay.
Right.
I know. I'm so guilty of that. Like, I can spend hours researching workout routines,
Right.
but never actually set foot in the gym.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
We feel like we're making progress because we're gathering information, we're making lists,
Right. We're in motion,
we're in motion,
but we're not taking action.
but no real action is happening.
Okay. So how do we break free from that cycle?
Well, Clear emphasizes that it's the doing that ultimately matters.
Right.
It's the action that leads to progress.
So sometimes that means embracing imperfection.
Yes, it's better to start taking imperfect action
Okay.
than to get paralyzed by the pursuit of perfection.
Done is better than perfect.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a good reminder that action breeds clarity,
Yeah.
and often the best way to learn
Yeah.
is by doing.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. And this also connects to another important concept.
Okay.
That Clear highlights the power of repetition. And we've talked about consistency,
Right.
but repetition takes it a step further.
It does.
So what's the distinction?
Well, consistency is about showing up regularly,
Okay.
while repetition is about the sheer number of times
Okay.
you perform the habit
So it's not just about doing it every now and then.
No,
It's
yeah.
about doing it over and over and over again.
until it becomes second nature.
Right. Okay.
And he cites some fascinating research on the brains of London taxi drivers
Okay.
and how they physically change
Yeah.
as they learn the city's complex streets.
Okay.
The hippocampus, which is the region of the brain involved in spatial memory,
Okay.
actually grows larger
Really?
in taxi drivers
Wow.
as they gain more experience.
It's like their brains are physically adapting
They are.
to the demands of their job.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's amazing. So it's not just about like willpower or motivation.
No, it's about the physical changes
Yeah.
that happen in our brains.
As we repeat those actions.
Exactly. The more we repeat a
Yeah.
habit, the more ingrained it becomes.
In our neural circuitry.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about embracing the power of practice.
It
But
is.
recognizing that mastery takes time and consistent effort.
Yeah, and it's not about overnight transformations
Right. It's about those small incremental changes.
that compound over time.
Exactly. Okay, so I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's one thing I'm still curious about. Clear talks about this connection between habits and happiness and suffering.
Yeah, that's a really interesting part of the book.
Yeah, and it seems a little bit philosophical, but I'm intrigued.
Well, it is a bit philosophical,
Yeah.
but I think it's deeply connected to how we approach habit formation.
Okay, I'm ready to dive in. So, yeah, I'm ready to kind of unpack this whole idea of habits being tied to happiness and suffering.
Okay, so Clear's argument is that both happiness and suffering are essentially about this gap between our desires and our reality.
Okay, so, like, if we're always wanting things we don't have, we're setting ourselves up for suffering.
Yeah, it's that feeling of wanting something and not having it.
Right.
And then happiness, at least from this perspective,
Yeah.
is that kind of fleeting moment when our desires are fulfilled.
But then, like, as soon as that desire is fulfilled, a new one pops up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we're on this endless treadmill of wanting.
It's that classic saying, happiness is the space between one desire being fulfilled and a new desire forming.
Right. It's like a carrot on a stick, always just out of reach.
Yeah, make you feel that way.
So, like, are we doomed to this perpetual cycle of desire and dissatisfaction?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
Clear suggests that this constant striving is actually part of the human condition.
Okay.
It's what drives us to grow, to evolve, to create.
So it's not about eliminating desire altogether.
Right.
It's about understanding how it works
Yeah.
and using it as fuel for growth.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one way to do that, he says, is to focus on the process,
Okay.
on the journey itself,
Uh-huh.
rather than just the destination.
So instead of being fixated on achieving a certain goal,
Yeah.
we should find joy in the steps we take along the way.
Right. Finding fulfillment in the present moment,
Okay.
in the act of pursuing our goals, rather than just the achievement of them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's about enjoying the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly.
And this brings us back to the importance of building habits that are intrinsically motivating, right?
Yes, habits that we enjoy for their own sake.
Right, they're not just a means to an end.
No.
They're a source of satisfaction and fulfillment.
And themselves.
Okay, so it's about finding those activities that light us up,
Yeah,
that we genuinely enjoy doing.
exactly. Aligning our habits
Yeah.
with our values and our deepest desires.
Okay, I like that.
Creating a life that feels both successful and meaningful.
This has been such a great deep dive.
It has.
You know, I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on how to approach personal growth.
It's not about being perfect.
No.
It's about making progress.
Yeah.
One tiny step at a time.
So as we wrap up, what is one small change you can implement today to start building a better habit?
That's a great question for all of us to consider.
Yeah, because as we've learned from James Clear in Atomic Habits, it's those small changes that can lead to big results.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.